Okay, sir, please go ahead.
Okay, hey, good morning, everyone. This is actually our sixth installment of our governance workshop previews, call it, with Sharemarq. We've got a group of us today. I'm just going to do what is normally done. I'm going to give an overview of where we've been and where we're going today. So thank you all for joining. We started 6 weeks ago, talking through core questions that you ask when working through the digital workspace governance, and quickly moved on to how we want to access and provide provisioning to the users. We then had a session talking through enterprise decisions that really need to be pondered and considered while going through any digital transformation. We then talked through one of our more exciting items, which was talking about provisioning and the roles and responsibilities of the people and the team members that are going to make up not only the team of change agents, but the team of users. And then last week we concluded with doing some talk about security and compliance. Today, Dave is teed up to talk through the use of the user interface and all of the things associated with that. And I just want to once again thank everybody for attending, and remind everybody that the world is changing, and it's changing fast. And because of this, there's going to be gaps that create winners and losers. And we hope that this, in some small part, is the magic pill for assuring that you're not left behind, and that this is a path to success and the digital world. And with that, Dave, please go ahead with our talk on user interface today.
You bet, and thank you, Tim. That was a great segue right into where we need to go. And we want to talk a little bit about 4 different areas. We want to talk about the user interface, which helps us drive adoption, as we know. We also want to talk about the experience. What is our search experience? What is our outcome of what we're trying to promote and we're trying to create and enable across the board? We also want to talk about what is a customer. And Tim and I just had a quick conversation that was outstanding in regards to what is a customer. Is it a vendor? Is it a strategic partner who needs access, much like to Metalogic's portal, so they have access to provide and get information and be able to share information, collaborate with us as a team? That could either be through Teams, or as a guest, or as a specific user. We want to talk about what that customer experience looks like. We want to make sure that it's clear, crisp, and clean, so that we are providing secured information, but we're also interfacing and collaborating with our customer, whoever that is. One of the most important things that we find in early adoption is, what is the employee experience? If an employee has difficulty navigating or finding information, or being able to understand which button to click in order to get to where they need to go, that employee experience drives our adoption. And we want to be very cognizant of what that means, and listen to them so that they understand it. Does it go back to the same old web rule that 3 clicks and you should be where you need to go? Or what does that mean today? And we'll talk a little bit about that. But we want to make sure that we have that experience across multiple browsers, and potentially, now that we have many apps that are actually being loaded into Windows 10, for example, are they working? Are they secure? Am I going to allow someone to download Teams desktop application and not have to go through some type of browser? What does that mean, and what's that experience like, and how do we go forward on it? So in continuing the conversation, I want to give a quick overview of governance, what it means, why we're talking about it. And Tim, I think you kind of alluded to this a little bit, that we're covering a lot of different areas as we talk about governance, and UI, UX, CX, and EX are just one of the areas that we cover and work with in going forward. So our overall governance does not just include branding or the user experience. It really includes a wide scope of things. Any questions on that, or comments?
Yeah, Dave, it's just that that first pass when we're talking about, especially with customer experience and stuff, is, hey, thinking about whether these folks are internal or external to your company, because it brings along all those different security and compliance type and roles and responsibility type questions. And I know you'll dig into that, but It's a great distinction to make. This is not just for breakfast anymore. It's for a very wide audience.
You bet, and it covers that audience that includes the total enterprise or the firm that we're working with, from the technical to how we deal with processes and content, and the strategic decisions that we need to make. And of course, human resources and legal are always involved in that as well. But these all include in the user experience. Well, how do we set that up, and how do we make that work? Again, one of the tenets that we talk about, a governance that excludes any of the areas that we just showed, is an incomplete governance. And if we don't have a good understanding and a good direction of our user experience, what fails? Our adoption fails. And that really hits home when we start to look at when management says, well, what's our return on this investment going into a digital workplace? If we don't have a good idea of what our users are doing and how they're doing it and whether our adoption rates are going up, then we have a real question that we need to go forward with. We need to set those performance indicator, those KPIs that tell us about what is it that's going. And adoption, I keep going back to, is very, very important in driving forward how we are successful and how our success is going to be measured. And we want to make sure we craft the policies and the stakeholders are very clear on the understanding of how that is met. The outcome of any governance workshops that we do and that we work with our clients on is a governance plan. It's the guidebook that sets the administration, maintenance, and support. It even covers the things that we want to identify. What are we going to move? Is it just going to be a lift and shift of data, or are we actually taking something from a shared drive and applying it in a Teams channel? What are we doing with that data as we migrate it, as we transition it and transform it into the new digital workplace from a previous legacy environment? We need to set those guidelines and those marks. What are the policies? What are the rules? Are we applying new security? What are the things that is going to affect our user experience and our employee experience? We want anywhere, anytime, on any device. It has almost become a cliche anymore. There are so many things that we need to be very, very aware of, but that's the user experience. If I'm on a tablet and I'm a buyer and I'm in England buying spices for a company and I'm on an iPad, is my user experience the same, or should it be nearly the same as it would be if I was sitting in front of my desktop on Windows 10? Those are things that we need to be cognizant of and very aware of. We need to make sure that we can apply the governance plan across the board, not only tactily, but technically. We want to make sure that technically things are running smooth, things are on, and IT is keeping the lights on. The key to a lot of what we're going to talk about today is talking with the business. If the business is not satisfied and is not using what we perform, then it's our user experience that we really need to be looking at. So the primary objectives of any governance should be to create a people infrastructure, not a technical infrastructure. It is to govern and support the platform across all of the tools. What's the platform looking like is Delve, search relevance, search optimization. These are interfaces that work directly with what we're talking about here today. We want to make sure we're measuring that as well. And real quickly, the governance overall covers a huge gamut, not only equipment, but it also covers branding, configuration, navigation, training, custom development. So we're talking about a scope that is much broader than just turning the lights on and making sure that Delve or Teams is operating in a functional manner. Want to make sure that backups are taking place. We know Microsoft is always doing that, but how do we get access if we have to back up something? What's the procedure to do that? Again, that's employee interface, because my employee interface better include how do I open a Microsoft Premier ticket to Microsoft in order to get a backup and a restore. That interface needs to be known, explained, and defined and trained. Those are all employee experiences that we need to make sure that we have good definition around. That's how we're going to operate. How are we going to keep the lights on is one aspect of it. But how are we going to use the product and products as we're going forward? Because we know it's an ever-changing landscape and things are always moving. And Tim, I know you talk about things are changing all the time. One last slide, a little bit on governance here, is talking about how do we apply governance. And again, we're talking about what is our user experience. It's not the wild, wild west out there where anybody can do anything at any time in any way that they choose. We need to be able to apply the governance based on the type of content that they're using and how we collaborate with them. So as we move down through the heavier content management to where we're putting documents into SharePoint, for example, we may have a lighter governance, but we need to make sure visibility is increased as we move up through reporting and completing those things. So the governance pyramid, basic premise is traffic and how it moves back and forth in our single users versus our corporate user who's looking for maybe a global tenant to provide adoption rates and adoption capabilities. Oftentimes, the biggest thing we set up is make sure that we have the proper business infrastructure set up. We have the executive steering teams, the governance committees, and content committees. So that's just a real quick overview, real quick shot at governance. We've gone into greater depth about all the questions that you want to be looking at and how things are working. But we want to talk a little bit about now into user interface and user experience. What does that mean? What's the difference of that? We want to make sure we have a client experience that is they're using it. They're actually participating and engaging and collaborating. Want to look at some of those things. So as you know, our agenda here is to learn how to govern applications in Office 365. We create custom policies based on, one of the big examples that was used is the Hershey company, Hershey chocolate, and all the things that they're into and the things that they do. Hershey looked at multiple other industries to see what policies that they needed to be put in place, and they spent nearly 8 months going through and setting up those custom policies and trying to understand exactly how that all worked together. How is a corporation going to manage these applications? As are we going to allow for custom development? Are we going to allow folks to do not custom development, but are we going to allow for configuration capabilities, things that are out of the box, which I'll later say OOB is out of the box, and it talks a lot about what are the ways that I can use what already exists, and that I'm not actually going out to get someone to create something new for me, and that's a big activity that goes on, and training is really part of that. Are we going to allow for customizations for processes and managing these applications? How are we going to write those procedures for accessing it? How am I going to create a new channel in Teams? How am I going to use SharePoint in Teams? In what ways are we going to protect and provide access in the background? Those type of things. A lot of the employee experience questions are managed and created using just basic templates. One of the big engagements that we have done is with a university, and that university had 26 different departments. It had 10,000 students. We dealt with a student population, and each department wanted their own custom look and feel. They wanted their own departmental colors, and they had very distinct coat of arms that they wanted displayed within there, so you could tell the difference. Am I in the library sciences or if I'm over here in the medical sciences? Where am I? And that becomes something that is an employee experience, and it really is very, very important going forward. So has anyone really experienced where you've seen that, as we use web pages or as we use the different apps, have they wanted to customize that? Anybody have any examples of customization that's been done?
Dave, I can think of a corollary like that, and the answer, of course, is yes. And I could go through lists of companies I've been at that have done that. But I think a little bigger picture, something I wanted to share was the fact that I saw years ago an ad for a cable network or a provider like that had the spokesperson say this line. It was kind of funny. It said, "I don't know what that is, but I want it." How many times have you heard the business and in fairness or maybe in unfairness, often the business will go to IT and say, I don't know what that is, but I want it, and I don't know what that is, but when I see it, I'll know I want it, right? So as a segue to when we get into the user interface, it's unfair, but it happens, right? I'll know it when I see it. I hear often. And I wanted to kind of bounce that off as a little expanded answer to your question, Dave. But yes, you see it all the time. I don't know what that is, but I want it, or better yet, I'll know it and want it when I see it. So this user interface and these sensory things are so very important. So you should upfront decide what the parameters are for what you're going to allow and what you're not. But then also, again, make it very friendly because adoption is so crucial here. Back to you, Dave, on comments on how that happens, because we've got ways to lead folks there.
Absolutely, and the most important aspect to that of anything is it should not be seen through the lens of IT. It should be seen through the lens of the business and the multiple departments or the different aspects: advertising, marketing, legal, financial. The architectural board was always wanting something a little bit different. It needs to be seen through the lens of business and not through the lens of IT, and I can't drive that far enough ahead.
Right, and this well said, Dave, and to put the final point on it, this governance drives that. It's unfair when business asks, I'll know it when I see it. I'll know what I need when I see it. So we have a way of showing them, literally, with these interfaces. So with that, Dave, meat and potatoes. Here we go.
Defining the UI, UX, CX, and EX is most important, and what we need to make a decision upon, and we find that companies struggle with this from time to time and they need guidance around, is who does the changes and what changes can we make without invoking a code developer. What are the things out of the box, OOB, that we can use to change the way we look, to change the way that we do things? Teach me. Tell me that I can change something in the ribbon. I had a great governmental agency that got really excited about, oh wow, we can do this, we can do that, and they were in there changing things in the traditional ribbon and got rid of the home screen. All of a sudden everything disappeared. Little things like that. It is because you have to provide that level of training and understanding when you design that. And one of the things that we do when we have found very successful, especially in SharePoint, is that we don't give someone the keys to the kingdom until they are fully trained, fully aware, and that they have spent some time with us in understanding the things they can change and the things that they're not supposed to change. And then on the backside, we always look at IT saying, and security and compliance, we always want to make sure that this is why we want business doing these things, because we don't want that coming back. And here's the why of the things that we want not to give to them, but we still can do these things. And here's the things that we empower the business, yet we do it intelligently without giving them everything unless they are trained and ready for that aspect of it. So that's what I mean by when I say the boundaries for 365.
Dave, we had a saying in the military. It was always this: is it, can you change it? Sure. Okay, but the fast follow-on question is that you have to ask is, should we change it? And then again, maybe as the punchline, the most important is it secure, right? Can you change it? Sure, I can, but should we? And is it secure? That's the direction we're going here.
And that answer needs to be answered in keeping security and compliance and IT as a business unit, working with other business units in order to understand how it affects the user experience. The user interface is oftentimes overlooked, and then also what is our employee experience looking like. And our customers will be the first ones to tell you, I can't get somewhere. Show me where I'm supposed to go. It's there, but I can't find it. So now we fall back into traditional web interface pages and navigation issues with that. But one of the big questions that is often asked is, give me some examples. Tell me a little bit about, or show me what the user interface looks like. Tell me what the employee experience should be on Yammer, or show me the experience that I'm supposed to be looking at in Teams. Or, when I pop up that search center page in SharePoint, it gives me a tonnage of information. I don't even understand everything I'm looking at. Well, again, that's employee experience, and we have to consider what that user experience as they interact with that. Now, one of the things I'd like to take you out to real quick is something that I often refer during the workshops to, and it's called, it's a website that has created many, many live websites. It's combined. We have permission to look at them. And if you go out to www.spsdemo.com, please be aware, do not go out in IE or Edge. Go out and just switch to IE 11. Or Chrome and Firefox do not work. They want you to install Silverlight applications. What I have found is the best way to go is just switch your Windows 10 Edge, or if you're using IE 11 or 10, it'll work. Those already have Silverlight installed. Otherwise, it's going to be frustrating to go to this. And what I'd like to do is just pause for a moment and go out to these pages and kind of show you what user interfaces look like and how you can use this to provide additional examples on that. So give me just a moment.
Yeah, and Dave, while you're pulling that up, what we're looking at there is these are thousands of examples of websites created at this site. So if you're looking for ideas, wow.
Yep. Now, and again, this for ideas for an advertising marketing department, or for someone looking out, well, what does it look like? How do I put those stuff up? These things are all created in SharePoint. This and SharePoint can be used for this for an intranet, or it can be used for informational pages, or you can combine this. Even though Microsoft has dropped some of it, you can still get a public site using interface of SharePoint. There's many different ways to get to this, but I want to show you a place to go that shows you what some of these user interfaces look like. One of the best ones here, and again, you just have to click on it and go to it. And one of the best ones that I found is this one here. And again, we're given permission to look at all of these. These are public sites that are created. This is SharePoint. Doesn't look like our traditional SharePoint. You can see how we've created. We didn't create this. This is something just exists in the environment. But you can see that the scrolling capability, the look and feel. We did something like this at Excel Energy, where we actually brought in a designer to work with us to say, what is the user experience supposed to be? What does it look like? And if I want to go back here, I can say I want to find something in the professional services, and we'll go and find all the websites in the professional services, and let's take what a user interface would look like maybe in this one. Here again, the rendering is going to be specific to it, but you can see, look at the different ways that folks are using the user experience and the user interface. And some of these are internal, some of these are external, some of these are for partner sites as we go forward. So this is a great way to get examples of what you actually want to look at. The nice thing about this is that you are actually able, if I double click on it again, I can actually go in and get to that site. So it allows me to go into that site and go at it. Over here, it tells you about ratings, what the community has rated these different sites, and how it's using it and the interface that it goes with. So I hope that helped a little bit. You can see the different ways that folks are using the Office 365 tool suite in order to be able to create a user experience and to create a rich environment that's intelligent in how it's being used. And
Dave, what a great tool for smashing that dilemma. I don't know what that is, but I want it, and I'll know it when I see it. Hey, there it is. There's it. I mean, that's worth the price of admission right there. Thanks a million, Dave.
You bet. And I think that so many times this is a hang-up. People don't know what they can do with it. They don't know they can add a content editor web part in there and actually put a live video in there, or that they can drop a picture to make it look like what they're dealing with here. So please use this. Again, I give you the caveat that do this in IE 11 or down to IE 8 will actually work as well. But you can pick your industry, wherever industry you want to be looking at, and it will show you the current sites. I was absolutely surprised. Did you know that General Mills, Harley Davidson, Porsche, um, Camelot in England, the casino lottery industry, uses SharePoint for their external sites? It is absolutely surprising. You would be amazed at what is used. And sometimes it's custom design. Most of the time it's just right straight out of the box. Well, let's jump back to our presentation here. Any questions or concerns or thoughts?
No, Dave, none of that surprises me. It's just knowledge is power, but that's awesome. I mean, just that visual right there with those thousands of sites surely makes you feel not alone in the universe. Thanks for that overview and that demo.
And there's tons of information out there. Okay, let's get into a little bit of talking about what's effective and manageable within the applications that we're going to be using. We need to look at, there's two words here, and I apologize, I led with customization because that becomes very, very concerning to not only develop management, but to our developers, because they go, well, is everything I'm going to have to do customized? No. And I should have actually put in here more that this should be configurable and potentially customized. And this includes all the applications within Office 365, all the tools that we have. We can change and brand Yammer to be a color. We can put a logo. We can give it a little bit different look and feel to help it be configured to be what we want it to operate as. And it's very important that we separate those two terms into two different ways. We want to make sure that we look at those. If we have to go down the customization path, is anyone else in the company already done it? That's really what it comes down to. We at a large utilities company, we uncovered that part of our transmission department had already gone out to a design studio and asked for custom interfaces for their client, their partners, and for the employee experience. We didn't even know from a corporate level that they had done that until we did in the inventory tools. And we said, whoa, wait a minute, you guys have custom work. How much did you spend? $50,000. Well, guess what? That's not going to transfer up to 2016 in Office 365. But hey, that user interface, that capability that you just spent $50K on last year, guess what? It's already built into SharePoint. We could have saved you money. We could have shown you that by this configuration, you would have gotten the same thing. They didn't know. And oftentimes that's the most important part of making sure you're working with business and you're talking with the business, that they're not off doing their own types of things. So we have multiple areas. We want customization and configuration policies that identify everything from the business intelligence, workflows, and content management, but how we actually migrate data as well. How are we doing that? Are we going to sync it? Or are we going to lift and shift? Or are we going to do first pass, second pass, third pass, and then do configuration work and then custom work? What's the flow of how we make the user adoption better and better along the way? What's the life cycle like? How do we manage these applications? Branding. Branding is probably, as I'm a person that sits in finance and I'm looking for, I want to see my company logo, or I want to see my departmental colorization. I want to know that this has been configured to making it personal. I want something that, what's in it for me? I want to be able to see that there's an article about one of my colleagues that just got an award. I want to be able to have that level of branding. I want to know that I'm using the right terms. And when I do my search, what does my search relevance look like? Am I pulling up something in HR that I shouldn't be pulling up? Again, that's user interface and employee experience, because we have to be so careful with data today that we need to embed that into our employee experience so that things are not becoming exposed or does not have access. Sometimes in Office 365, we have tools that allow us to not allow it to even be painted on the screen. They have been audience targeted. They're not this particular person at granular level in their employee experience. doesn't even know it exists because we have set an audience target only for certain people at certain times. Again, that's employee experience. What does that mean? And those are the things that we talk about. Branding can be that way as well. Solutions or apps. Oftentimes we look at the galleries that are available for apps and the different master pages even. What is that user experience supposed to look like? It should be consistent. Should it be standardized? Or are we allowing some folks some freedom to be empowered to make those changes? Again, back to my slide on boundaries. We set the boundaries and we empower them to do things. What are those boundaries looking like? What are the solutions that we give them access to? And when do we give them access to? It all falls back to the employee experience, the user experience of how things are going forward. And I can't emphasize that enough. If we don't have a good employee experience, Tim, what happens? Put you on the spot.
Yeah. Hey, I had to come off mute there, but it's all comes down to you have less desirable adoption.
Bingo. Perfect. Adoption.
And I didn't say bad or poor or crud. I just said less than desirable. You're just not optimizing adoption.
You got it. Perfect. Any questions or concerns around that? And I know we're hitting it hard, Tim, and I appreciate your answer. That's perfect. Okay, let's continue. Again, our objective, and I use one of my old slides. I apologize. Working with one of the universities, we want to make sure that we have, corporate customization policies. What are our SLAs around agreements for supporting and managing customizations? One of the biggest things that we need to look at, and IT will tell you this day in and day out, so will security and compliance. You better test that to make sure you don't break all of Office 365. That has happened time and time again, and I may have subliminally left Metro State there because that's where it happened. We had someone who it was university. They were taking classes, and they created an app. And the app was great. It was a great user interface. But guess what? It brought down the entire environment because they didn't know there were certain parameters and certain policies and certain ways of going about this. It should have been tested. It was never even put through UAT testing. It was never even put through initial R&D in staging and getting it ready. Had we known and been able to put that in our sandbox to begin with, we would have been able to nix those little bits of Java code that just literally killed us, and it took a week to recover. It was amazing. So those service level agreements about who's going to do what, where, when, and how have to be in place when we talk about customization. And we know that configuration has already been vetted. Microsoft does an excellent job in making sure. Granted, there are problems from time to time, and they'll tell you it is. Microsoft still touts that their SLAs are 99.9% uptime, and they're financially backed. Now, when you get into big corporations, sometimes they'll adjust that, but they give you good uptime guarantees. Again, I will go back and make sure that we changes to customizations is critical, but also changes in configuration. What if I change a master page or a channel page in Teams? I want to make sure that it has the navigational capabilities that I want it to. I don't want it to drop those or add things that are going to confuse my user experience.
Dave, is this governance exercise that we can help and provide? Can you consider that the beginnings of the development, or is it the foundation for the beginnings of developing a center of excellence around this? Could someone do that?
You hit it spot on, Tim. Really good, because that's where as you go and as you deploy Office 365 and as you learn from your implementation of Office 365, you develop a center of excellence. You create subject matter experts, champions, and power users within that center of excellence that they're able to go out. One of the things I set up there back at Metropolitan State University was that the site administrator or site collections administrators met once a month, and they then met with the Center of Excellence SMEs to discuss new features, patches, functions, capabilities, and we sometimes introduced things to our site collections administrators that we did it in a phased approach, because oftentimes there's so much, as you know, we fire hose them, and we don't want to do that. We want to be able to trickle the right information and make sure that they're keeping up with everything else that's going on. So Center of Excellence, Tim, great comment, perfect timing. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Just another fringe benefit of this, if you will.
You bet. Now, one of the things that we always want to, we know 365 does an excellent job in the administrative portal, is being able to understand what and how adoption is being monitored, how is use happening, what are the problems that we're having. Like Skype for Business, we know is at the very, very beginning, will give us a headache. It will take us some time to get it configured correctly and to make it completely the way that our user experience and our employees expect it to be. And that administrative portal will tell us about how many calls are being made, how many conference calls are being made, the duration of the time that a call is taking place, where those calls went on, what browser was used during the time that the Skype was on, what country it's in, what IP addresses. I mean, we get a wealth of data out of the administrative portal that will tell us a lot about how to analyze our processes. If I made a change, I want to be able to go into the portal and say, oh, that worked, and guess what? Our adoption rate went up. People are now using it because we did something to help them. We also need to know and understand what things we need to retire and move out of that. We need to also look at, there are many bolt-ons to Office 365, like Harmony. Harmony is a great tool. It goes into Outlook and allows you the interface between SharePoint for email. We want to make sure those tools are bolt-on, that provide a customized user experience, are vetted, and that they are doing what we expect them to do and how we expect them to do. We need to really consider what are not only the development but the implementation parts of this as well. When we get into actual customization, what are coding best practices? What are the guidelines we're going to provide some department who wishes to have something added that needs to be developed? They're going to spend money to add on additional features and functions that don't exist within Office 365. Okay, we need to tell them what is our best practice, what are our boundaries that we allow them to create this application in. We know that Designer is still out there. Heaven help us, Designer is one of the most powerful tools in the toolbox for Office 365, and we have to make sure that when we give someone the keys to the Designer kingdom, that they have been trained and certified. If they are not showed full flexibility and capability within that tool, we don't give them the keys. And of course, Design Manager comes and goes. It depends on what edition that you're on.
Yeah, Dave, whoever holds this hammer, thee be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. We want to make sure that the people that have that power absolutely have that the right skills and such. So with great power comes great responsibility. Thanks for enunciating on that.
I wish you could put that in capital letters and flash it in neon, Tim. I have run across where people could, because you can download Designer for free, and all of a sudden they pop it in, and if I didn't turn it off in the tenant, all of a sudden they start messing with things. So you're right. I wish we could flash that in neon to every client, Tim. Yeah, Designer is awesome. It's also great for working with migration and some of the tools that are in there. I want to make sure that folks are piloting and testing appropriately and that they're putting that together. We don't have sandboxes anymore, but we can create a site collection that can be isolated and allow them to do that. So there are ways for isolation within different areas. Part of the user interface and user experience too is who's going to pick up, the user experience is I'm going to pick up the phone and ask how to do something, or maybe something disappeared on my screen. Who's going to support that? And Tim, this falls back to your Center of Excellence folks. Are they transferring their knowledge to the call center, to the help desk? Are they providing adequate knowledge base so that our level 1 triage folks that pick up the phone and the calls to the help center know that this is something that they can dig in and find an answer to, and they have the ability to make a quick change? Or do they have to pass it off to level 2? Maybe that's the center of excellence, to a specific SME who has knowledge and understanding. Then they pass it off. Maybe there's a level 3. What are the levels? Let me come back a little bit. We need to set those. The first level, before they even should be able to pick up the phone and call the help desk, is we need to establish the champions and the power users, the peers that are in the organization. We don't just turn on Office 365 without making sure that there's adequate training at the user level. If we have someone who's a designer, they've had training. If someone is a team site owner, they've had training. If they are a site collections owner, maybe somebody is a moderator in Yammer on monitoring the conversations and making sure that quarantines within the DLP in real time is being handled. We want to turn that back to the business. We want the business to be able to answer the question by reaching across the aisle into someone's cube and say, hey, you're a power user on this topic. Can you tell me maybe how to do this, before they pick up the help center call? We want to establish that camaraderie, that level of collaboration inside the business itself and their departments. We want to establish. Yammer did a fabulous job years ago with their Yammer success implementations, where someone would become a departmental Yammer success expert. They're the ones that went off to Yammer training, and they're a power user, or they are someone who's a champion who has even more training. But they are the folks that sit right in your local area. There's a badge on their cube and it says, hey, I'm a power user in Yammer, ask me a question. And it really gives the ownership to the business to collaborate and participate, because we know that we have limited resources in IT, and it becomes less and less to a skeleton crew every day. Our center of excellence folks are there for our level 2 or level 3. They're the ones that keep us headed in the right direction. They're not the ones that say, well, how do I find, or what happens when I click this button? We want that happening at the local level. Any questions about that, or that's a strategy?
Dave, I got a comment on that. With the risk of sounding a little sophomoric, but a lot of these things we need to know about governance we learned in kindergarten. But say please and thank you, but share and share alike. I've seen it implemented successfully at a large medical manufacturer here in the Twin Cities, but just a SharePoint group that did just that, and it was subject matter experts going on a call much like this once a week, just helping people through. And you'd be surprised just the confidence that builds, and just how effective that is. So you can't stress that enough. Just creating those appropriate power users, and then ensuring, maybe even rewarding, the fact that they share their knowledge.
One of the things we did at a large retail manufacturing plant is that anybody who was in attendance at the power users group, as we rolled it out, got a t-shirt that said Office 365. You give them some token of appreciation for their time and effort, and then you ask them back. When you want to roll out for Skype for Business, you want to roll out headsets across global, who do you call upon? You call upon those business power users to help you hand out those headsets now that Skype for Business is up and running and working for you. Or maybe
Dave, I think I still.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I think I still have that sports shirt. I think I still have it.
I wore it the other day, Tim, my bright orange one. Anyhow, we want to make sure that anytime that anything happens, even migration of data, or the transference of data from a shared drive into an Office 365 group or channel, or maybe moving videos from a previous ECM product into Stream, and Stream being very, very powerful for metadata and the taxonomies that go behind that. We want to make sure our customers are right on board. They're aware, and they will adopt the use of Stream. They may not even know what it is. Most people don't. But once they see it and it makes sense, and now I can get to it in my Teams interface without having to go out. Awesome. It's so cool. Um, so, moving forward, that's kind of where we are. Any questions or concerns? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about policies and potential types of customizations. There's lots of material out there. There's lots of ways for you to be able to get to this information. One of the great things is that you need to look, I would definitely use YouTube because Microsoft will post their monthly features and functions updates, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with a business person taking a look at these and saying, I'd really like to be able to do that. How can we make that happen? Do I have to provide a custom work with that, or can I actually come in here and provide a way to ask my Center of Excellence folks, my IT team, to be able to bring that into effect? We're down to about the last 10 minutes of the presentation. Again, this presentation is somewhere around 100 slides during the workshops. We provide 6 weeks of workshops in which we ask each of our customers to sit with us with their specific groups and be able to define policy, set the procedures, create that playbook, the governance plan. And we spend 2 hours a week with each of these units over a 6-week period of time, and after about 12 hours of time, we have a governance plan. Then we implement Office 365, or we implement on-prem as well. So our goal is to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about here and why user interface and UX, CX, and EX are so important and oftentimes overlooked. A lot of folks will go, "Oh, that's great. I'll just use the plain vanilla SharePoint." Everybody goes, "I'm not going to use that. That's dumb. That looks like something out of IT. That's not what I want. I'm not going to use it." So they don't use it. What happens? Adoption fails. Once we put in a better and listen to them and create that employee experience for them, adoption will go through the roof. And I've seen it time and time again with these companies that actually listen to this part of the governance setting. And so with that, Tim, I'll turn it back to you, and thank you for your comments and time with this. So any questions, comments, concerns, things that you'd like to add from your personal experience?
No, I'll just want to say thank you, Dave. Thanks for that. Your knowledge is very, very valuable, and this tip of the iceberg information is available on YouTube and other sites. And I guess I'd like to say thanks to those that attended. And it was a great discussion, because if you can build the best Taj Mahal, but if no one visits it, it's not worth the price of admission. So again, thanks, Dave. What do we have coming up next week?
Next week we're going to be talking about access, and what does access actually mean, and how does that work? And there's so many different levels than just saying, "Oh, I'm going to give you a user ID and ADFS, and that's going to propagate down into or into Office 365." No, that's only one component of access. We want to talk about audience targeting. We want to talk about the differences and how that's used. We want to talk about the boundaries and the empowerment that we will use around what access really means in Office 365. It's so much larger than just creating an ADFS email address.
Yep, agreed. So again, thank you for that, Dave, and to our followers here, I'll remind you that the world is changing, and it's changing fast. Because of this, there's going to be gaps created, and you want to be on the winning side rather than the losing side of that. It's the quick that survive here, and these are snippets of the pieces of the solution, this promised land that we can point you towards. So the takeaway here today is that adoption is important, and a caveat or a follow-on with these governance workshops that we provide are the creation of a center of excellence that can come along with it for the ride. So again, thank you, Dave. Until next week, thanks everyone.
You bet. Thank you. Have a good day.